Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Fanny Law, Detective Senior Inspector of Police, and I'm from the Joint Financial Intelligence Unit, JFIU. So today I'm going to share with you this PowerPoint about methods of money laundering and terrorist financing and suspicious transaction reporting. So here is just a disclaimer that because the copyright of this PowerPoint are owned by us, so that please do not make any recording. I think you may not have to copy anything because we will provide you with a copy of a PowerPoint later. So this is the outline of my presentation. First, I will talk about unit JFIU. Second, about some key legislation about money laundering. Third is some methods or examples of money laundering and terrorist financing. We call it ML and TF. And the fourth one is a more practical one about the suspicious transaction reporting, STR. And the last one is about inside the STR, the narrative structure. How do you write? What do you need to write in the STR? So first about JFIU. So actually, first part, it is about some history. We are set up in 1989, co-staffed by officers of Hong Kong Police and the CNE department. So that's why we call joint. And we are the sole agency to manage the suspicious transaction reporting regime. And we are also a financial intelligence unit exchanges with some FIU, also some financial intelligence units and law enforcement agents worldwide. We are also a member of the Edmond Group since 1996. Basically, it's just a forum to exchange information. And also, lately this year, the Financial Intelligence and Investigation Bureau (FIIB) was just established, and we are part of it. So here comes a charter. Basically, we will have some operation analysis and also some strategic analysis of STR and financial intelligence and other information. We also have global exchange of financial intelligence and information. And also we will do some research on ML and TF trends and topologies. Basically, every day we'll read through the crimes cases being reported and have a look at what is going on, whether there are a lot of fraud cases or not. And we also operate a system called Streams. It's a system that people will use it to input or send us some STR. And we also have support on provisional measures to prevent further dealing of suspicious property. And also we staff local and international AML and CFT that is combating the financing of terrorism, policy matters. And lastly, like today, we coordinate AML and CFT training and outreach. So the next part is about some key legislation. There are several legislation. So back in 1989, we have the Drug Trafficking Recovery of Process Ordinance, DTROP, in Cap 405 of the Hong Kong law. We call it DTROP, so you may hear about it. And in 1994, we have the Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance, OSCO, in Cap 455. We call it OSCO. And in 2002, we have the United Nations Anti-Terrorism Measures Ordinance, UNATMO, in Cap 575. We call it UNATMO. And then in 2012, we have the AML and CFT Financial Institutions Ordinance, AMLO, in Cap 615. And lately in 2018, we have the amendment of AMLO in Cap 615, and I'm going to go through that with you. So this is very important. A key legislation in AML, it is talk about any person knowing or having reasonable grounds to believe that any property, in whole or in part, directly or indirectly represents process of drug trafficking or indictable offense deals with the property will receive a maximum penalty of Hong Kong dollar 5 million fine or 14 years of imprisonment. Actually, for the DTROP and the OSCO, the contents are nearly the same. It just deal with different offenses. The DTROP deal with drug offenses, The article deal with all other indictable offenses. And for the CFT, it talks about any person shall not provide or collect directly or indirectly any property with the intention that the property be used or knowing that the property will be used in whole or in part to commit one or more thereof as the maximum penalty as 14 years imprisonment. So the UNAMO focus on the counterterrorism. And then here comes it reads any person knows or suspects any property represents was used is intended to be used in connection with the process of drug trafficking or terrorist property shall disclose that knowledge or suspicions to an authorized officers. That is JFIU. You may find it a bit strange because actually it makes a part in this PowerPoint. For the DTROP, it deals with the process of drug trafficking. For UNATMO, it deals with the terrorist property. So actually it makes a part which is under article, the indictable offense. So it will read as any property represented was used is intended to be used in connection with the process of drug trafficking, indictable offenses or terrorist property, and shall disclose the knowledge to JFIU. If you are not disclosing, the maximum penalty will be level 5 fine and also 3 months imprisonment. And the next one is talk about where the person knows or suspects that a disclosure has been made, and the person shall not disclose to any other person any matter which is likely to prejudice any investigation which might be conducted following that first mentioned disclosure. And there is a maximum penalty of Hong Kong dollar 500,000 fine and 3 months imprisonment. Actually, we call this a tipping off offense. That is, you should not disclose your previously first mentioned disclosure to the criminal because you are tipping off them. And it's not talking about for example, when there is a civil proceedings, you have to disclose to the court any other first mentioned disclosure. So the next one, I will briefly share with you some methods of money laundering and terrorist financing. So this one, you may know it as that first we have the placement, second we have the layering, and third we have the integration. So stage one placement, the criminals may place the dirty money into the financial system by smuggling cash, business, remittance, valuables, currency exchange, securities, or they put money into the banking system or by real estate that they buy some property. And then the stage two as layering, they will convert the process of crime into other forms. So they normally will create a complex layers of financial transaction to defraud the audit trail, source, and owner of funds by some deposits, multiple transfer, or multiple transactions. So the last stage is the integration. So to integrate the laundered funds from different sources, and they will use the laundered funds to purchase clean assets. So all the business, accounts, real estate, valuables, currency, or securities will then go back to the syndicate. So it seems that the assets are already cleaned. And some other methods of terrorist financing include appeals of donations, MPOs, or some funding from criminals or legitimate activities. Sometimes they will just make some fundraising, and also physical transportation of cash or use of bank accounts and money service operators, MSO. And now the overall level of terrorist threat in Hong Kong remained as moderate. So the next part is more practical one. It's about STR. So the STR mechanism composed of 3 parts. From the reporting entities, maybe all of you guys, and the second one is Financial Intelligence Unit, it may be the JFIU, and then there are also the law enforcement agencies. So it gives you more details on these 3 parts. Basically, it's just public-private partnership. The first one, reporting entities, they may be the financial institutions like the bank, and also DNFBP means designated non-financial businesses and professions like the lawyers or accountants. So they will do some CDD or KYC, and they will keep record of the clients, and they have internal controls. So if they see any suspicion, they will file the STR to us. And the second part is the Financial Intelligence Unit. That is the JFIU, and we got a STR regime, and also we have intelligence exchange with other units, some international cooperation, and also like today we have the training and outreach. We as an intelligence unit, we will not investigate any cases, and we will also not attend court or make arrest of the criminals, because there are the units and the law enforcement agencies. That is the this right column. For example, the police, customs, and ICAC. So what they are doing, they will conduct financial investigation, assess tracing, and they may apply for restraint and confiscation order to the court, and also for this mutual legal system. For example, another country seek to ask us to free some property for them. So it also summarized that when there may be some information from the reporting entities, and then the reporting entities may file a STR, and then the information will become intelligence when it comes to JFIU. And then when we pass the intelligence to the law enforcement agencies, they will conduct financial investigation, and then afterwards they will have some evidence. So then they may put the criminals to the court. So this is STR statistics that you may want to take a look. This is from 2012 to 2021 up to September. And you can see that the number for this year is 43,000. Actually, that is quite a lot, but also just a little bit higher than those last year. And it is a STR statistic, the sectorial breakdown of STR received by our unit in this year. So you can see that a lot of them are filed by the banks. There are 35,000. And the next one is from the stored value facilities licenses, for example, WeChat Pay or Alipay. And the third one is money service operators, MSO. And for trust and company service provider, you see this arrow, we got about 100. So how to submit an STR? If you find any suspicion, for example, in one of your clients, there are two ways. For the first way is you make it in the e-reporting system from the streams. If you expect that you have a lot to file, then you can go to it is from the web page of JFIU, jfiu.gov.hk. You can download the application form and then fax or send email to us, so that we can create an account for you to use the stream system to send us the STR. But normally, if you do not expect you have a lot of STR to file, you can just, there is a proforma in our website. It is in a PDF form, and then you can key in your information in the PDF form, and then you fax it to us or you send us by email. So this is what it looked like in STR, and I will talk to you in details later. And this is the web flash indicators. It's talked about when will make you feel suspicious about your clients. For example, the first one is multi-jurisdictional or complex structure of corporate entities or trusts are established without valid grant. Basically, when you find that it should not have to be that complex, and with also there is not a reason for that to be so complex, and it will raise your suspicion. And the second one is payment, either local or foreign, are made or received without a clear connection to the actual activities of the corporate entity. And the third one is use of offshore bank accounts without legitimate economic necessity. And also the fourth one is customers' unwillingness or refusal to provide information or documentary proof on himself or herself or beneficial owner or of trust or companies. It seems that the customer is hiding something, then it also raises your suspicion. And the next one is source or destination of funds are unknown, or the transactions are heavily cash-based, which should normally be carried out through other payment facilities. And there are also some other examples like customers' background is not commensurate with the value of transaction carried out by the customer or on behalf of the company, or the company is established primarily for the purpose of collecting funds from various sources, which are then transferred to local or foreign bank accounts that have no apparent ties with the company, or the incorporation of the company by a non-resident with no links or activities in the jurisdiction where the company is established. And the last example is that the money flow generated by the company is not in line with its underlying business activities. Actually, these are just some examples, and I know there are some more in the guideline issued by the CR. You can take a look of chapter 4 of that. There are a lot more examples that you may refer to. So we are also giving you, we call it a safe approach. So that the first one, the S is screen. You can always screen subject entities background and transaction. The second one is A, ask. Ask appropriate questions to clarify circumstances. And the third one is F, find. Find relevant records for review. And the last one, E, mean evaluate whether suspicions is substantiated. If you substantiate any suspicions, just file an STR to us. So here comes the more practical part about the STR filing. So it is the first page of the STR proforma. The first one is talked about STR summary. When you see there some red star, it means you have to complete the box or complete the field. If not, you can just leave that blank. For example, here you do not have the STL number or submission number when you are filling in the performer, so you can just leave that blank. For the report related to existing investigation, if you do not have any previous report, so you just take no. But if there are yes, please do provide us, for example, our STR number or your own reference is also okay. We can take out your previous disclosure. And if you have any attachment, you can just add them in this performer. So the next part is reporting body. The first organization part or reporting officer is about the name of your organization, and also when you can enter your name for reporting officers. Organization reference is the own reference of your company, and phone, fax, email is also some contact. Means if we have some further questions, we will want to contact you for details. And the next one, reasons for disclosure. There are three parts. If it is related to a drug offense, you take the first box from the D drug ordinance. If it is related to some terrorist financing related to terrorism, you take the last box, the UNATMO, United Nations Anti-Terrorism Measures Ordinance. So for the remaining offenses, you can take the middle part, as the Organized and Serious Crimes Ordinance, OSCO. It is how you distinguish them. And for the subject part, I talk about your client, the subject of suspicions. So we hope that you can enter as much information as possible. For example, the family name, given name, and also more importantly, the ID number. If it's not Hong Kong ID, so please let us know whether, for example, it's the Chinese identity number or from other countries, and also the date of birth. And yeah, if you do not have that information, you can just leave that blank. The next one is the organization. Organization means that is there any company associated with the account held by the client in your organization, or if the subject is the director or beneficial owner of some company. So again, please enter as much information as possible, particularly the CL number, BL number, and even if, for example, it is a BVI incorporated company, you can provide us with the registration number. So this is the phone number of the subject. This is the address, and here comes the account. So if the subject held any account in your company, so please do fill in. And also, we recommend that you to fill in the balance part of it, and also the opening date and also the closing date. Sometimes our reporting entities may just enter all this as additional information, but we would like you to enter that into the corresponding field like the balance, because we can do the system can automatically do some calculation when you enter it into the corresponding field. And also, if you do not have any account details of the subject, you can just leave this blank again. So this is for the transaction. There are two types of transaction you can enter. The first one is talking about the review. For example, you review the client's account from the first day, January of 2020, you can enter the from date, and then until now you enter the to date. And the subject is about the subject account, what type of account in it, and the amount is the turnover you can enter. So that we can have some calculation on the last part. It talk about the total amount of suspicious transaction reported, and also the total period covering the suspicious transaction in days will be calculated in the performer. And the other form you can choose is that there is particularly one suspicious transaction, so the from day and to day will be the same, and then you can just enter the amount of that particular suspicious transaction. This is two types of transaction you can enter. And then for the suspected crimes, we have suggest some suspected crime that you can just take a box here. And the next one is suspicious indicator. You can take more than one box here, and you will see that at the bottom of this part, there is narrative comment about the questioned transaction. That's what I'm going to talk about in the last part. And the next part is open source information. If you have browsed some web page, you're always welcome to input the website here or stick us some link, or you copy the content of the website and put it into the additional information. So here for the entity list, it just show you what you have just inputted, and you can check the entity here to see whether there are any mistakes made, and then make amendment. So it is almost all parts of the STR performer. So lastly, I'm going to talk about the narrative structure. So and it is a recommended structure of STR narrative. It includes the triggering factors. The second part is background of subjects. The third part is transaction. The fourth part is reporting entities, inquiries, and open source information. And the last part is conclusion and wait for it. And I will go through that with you one by one. So the first part, triggering factors. if you know there are some involved crime, for example, fraud or corruption, sanction, terrorist acts, particularly if you know there is a fraud case, you can always mention the police report. It would be like NTSRN 210001, something like that. NTS mean the neutral self, and there are also some other part. For example, TW means 全one is about the place of reporting or the handling unit. So please do provide us with the reference number so that we can pass this STR to the officer in charge of the case. And the second one is maybe the warrants or court order received. For example, one day there are some police officer execute a search warrant in your office. So you can mention that, and also you can quote the number of search warrant, but more importantly, we will want the case reference more. And also if you have the court case reference, you can also input it here. Or the third one, maybe from some open source information. um, I usually see that's from the newspaper that you know, for example, one of your clients is being, for example, charged by ICAC, or some mainlander as being investigated by the PSB in the mainland. You can input this. And the fourth one is um, about the pattern of suspicious transaction. For example, there may be large transaction, temporal repository of fund, etc. So the triggering factor is talking about why you want, what make you feel this client is particularly suspicious. And then the second one is background of subject. For personal background like age, occupation, income, transaction history. And for the corporate, it will include the date of establishment, business nature, expected transaction amount, etc. So here for the transaction, previously you may just have include some numerous information to us. So for this part, you can describe it and add more details of it. For example, first you will include the reviewed period. For example, it is from like for the last year, or because the disclosure was triggered by the news that the client was investigated by PSB for a charge of corruption in 2016. So your revealed period may cover up to 2016. And the second one is fund movement pattern. Is there any sudden change of pattern? And the third one is total amount deposited or withdrawn. And then you can also mention if there are any suspicious transactions. And the last is the pattern of suspicious transaction. Sometimes from the, if you have the transaction of the client, there may not be the details of counterparties in the transaction records, which may normally be in an Excel format. So we highly recommend that if you want to mention some details of counterparty, you can mention that here. And also particularly in some check deposit, there may not be any transaction counterparty mentioned in the Excel table, so you can mention that here. And the fourth part is reporting entities, inquiries, and open source information. So you may have conducted some KYC queries, or you have some well-checked records, so you can input them here, and also the links of open source information if you have not input that previously. But actually, sometimes you may not want to alert the clients, so there may not be any KYC inquiries or some other information. So that's no problem. You can just forget about this part. So, and the last part is conclusion and way forward. The first is conclusion of the report. You can mention what you think the client may be suspected of, whether it's tax evasion, whether it's corruption, have a little conclusion of it, and also some follow-up actions. For example, if you have done any enhanced CDD measure, or actually if you have already ended the business relationship with the client, or you will end the business relationship with the client. So after you have submitted the STR, we will provide a feedback to you. First, if you are submitting through the stream system, you will receive the e-reply in the system. But I think most of you shall be using the proforma to send us email or faxer. So we will provide you with a feedback by fax or by email. So the first one will be the acknowledgement of receipt, and normally in the same letter, we will tell you another sentence. It's talking about whether the JFIU give you consent, no consent, or the consent is NA to you. So what's the difference of these three parts? So for consent, it means that we give a consent to you to deal with the property in the account. And if there is no consent, then you have to be very cautious of it, because if we give you a no consent, it means that the property in the account shall be frozen, that you should not deal with them. And also we are going to send you a letter of no consent very soon. That is a formal letter sent to you to tell that you should not deal with the property, otherwise you will commit the law under the OSCO or under the DTROP. And for NA, it means that there is no consent issue. Just like actually there is no property owned by your organization, that you don't have to consider whether you should or should not deal with it. That is about the NA. And then the next one is about the quarterly STR analysis. In our webpage, we will have quarterly analysis. We will share some crime trend from the analysis from the STR we saw each quarter. And the last one is meeting with stakeholders. So we occasionally meet our different stakeholders, and we will also share with them what we observe in the STR. They may also give us some more information of some lately crime trend, etc. So that is the end of my presentation. If you have queries, you can go to the website www.jfiu.gov.hk, or you can also send us email in jfiu@police.gov.hk.